1 year ago, much of China was shut down to help contain the spread of coronavirus. Now the country has the pandemic largely under control and is taking steps to get its economy back on track. Around 3,000 delegates are attending the biggest event on China's political calendar, the National People's Congress. Over the course of next week, there'll be rubber-stamping legislation prepared by the Communist Party elite, setting China's political priorities for the next 5 years.
China lays out its plans for this year as it emerges from the pandemic. At the top of the agenda, the economy and Hong Kong. China was the only major economy to see growth last year. The nation is bouncing back thanks to its strong response to COVID-19. But Beijing warns there is much work to be done. As the coronavirus continues to spread around the world, instability and uncertainty are mounting on the international landscape, and the global economy continues to face grave challenges. Domestically, there are still weak links in our work to control COVID-19. The foundation for achieving our country's economic recovery needs to be further consolidated. Barriers to consumer spending remain, and investment growth lacks sustainability. China's economic growth target may be modest, yet their plans for Hong Kong are anything but. Beijing wants to overhaul the territory's electoral system, citing loopholes and defects in the current system. Measures must be taken to improve the election system of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, eliminate hidden dangers and risks in the systems and mechanisms, and ensure that patriots are the main body of Hong Kong people administering Hong Kong. China also announced it will boost defense spending by nearly 7%. The rubber stamp parliament is also expected to discuss environmental issues and social development over the next week.
I'm now joined by our resident China watcher, Clifford Coonan. Clifford, last year this Congress imposed a national security law on Hong Kong, and this year China's strategy is to overhaul Hong Kong's electoral system. Tell us more about that.
Well, I think overhaul is one way. This is basically the complete destruction of the democracy movement in Hong Kong. It's condemned them to extinction, really, because the electoral system was already very heavily rigged towards the pro-Beijing parties in Hong Kong in the legislative council, but that's now been it's even more now rigged towards the Beijing camp, and I think this means that the pro-democracy parties will find it very, very difficult to get seats in the parliament. So what minimal voices they did have and what ways they had of presenting their views will pretty much be extinguished by this legislation.
Well, we have the National People Congress spokesperson saying the Hong Kong electoral system needs to be improved to guarantee that patriots manage and run Hong Kong. What do they mean by that? Well,
patriot in this case means someone who a pro-Beijing lawmaker, and they tend to come from the elite. Any elections we've had in the recent years in Hong Kong have shown that the majority of people in Hong Kong want more democracy, and they've had local elections and which have shown this, and there was widespread support for the demonstrations in the former colony. But now the focus on patriots means that that they're going to be much more Beijing focused. Beijing is laying down the line, and it's going to put its people, make sure that its people are running the show. Well, China has been one of the few economies, Clifford, that had actual growth last year, and now the government is setting a target of more than 6%. Isn't that a bit ambitious? Where they're going to find 6%? Well, that's right. I mean, some people are actually thinking it could be even 9% because of the rebound from the pandemic there. But 6% shows that they're sort of thinking they're going to be looking at the domestic economy primarily for growth, because the rest of the world's markets haven't yet recovered, are still in the pandemic very much. And so they're going to have to look domestically for growth. And I think that means looking at, boosting the technology sector in particular, because They need to boost homegrown technology because the US has imposed a lot of sanctions on its technology sector. So I think that between, with all of these things added in together, you're going to see very much a focus on domestic growth, and then and slowly, cautiously looking back to more overseas trade. But for now, everything is going to be driven by the domestic sector.
Our China expert Clifford Coonan from DW Business. Thank you, Clifford.